The sun sat over the expanse of the ocean, leaving behind the orange hue that faded off of the choppy surface of the water. Waves gently lapped against the hull of the Serenity, a small fishing boat that now felt more like a tomb than a vessel. Jake stared at the horizon, his heart heavy with the weight of the past week. It had started as a routine trip, just him and his 3 friends, but a sudden storm had tossed them around like rag dolls, and when the engine sputtered and died, it marked the beginning of their descent into hell. 3 weeks had passed since they'd run out of fuel, and the once cheerful laughter that filled the boat had faded into silence. The crew had rationed their food as best they could, but the supplies dwindled faster than they could have imagined. Despair hung thick in the air, a palpable force that choked every hope of rescue. Jake's mind drifted back to the last meal they shared, a meager portion of canned beans, and then the arguments that followed as hunger gnawed at them. Greg had been the first to break, his body weak and frail. "We can't just sit here," he'd shouted, eyes wild with desperation. But as they all began to succumb to the hunger, Greg's energy waned, and soon he lay motionless on the deck, his eyes vacant and lifeless. The memory of Greg's face haunted Jake. He had been the bravest of them all, always the one to keep spirits high. Each wave felt like a mocking reminder of his situation, and every whisper of wind through the sails taunted his hope of survival. A second crew member, Sam, had succumbed next, his body giving in to the inevitable after days of pleading for food. "We can't just wait to die," he had argued. But Jake, desperate to hold on to any hope, had refused to give up. "Help will come. We just need to hold on." But hope had turned to dust, and Sam's body had soon followed. Now Jake was the last man standing, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, he felt a creeping madness clawing at his mind. His stomach churned with hunger, and he couldn't shake the feeling that the sea was conspiring against him. Was it all in his head? He stared into the depths of the water, which seemed to beckon him closer, whispering sweet promises of release. That night, the darkness enveloped him, a thick blanket that swallowed the boat whole. He sat alone in the cockpit, gripping the wheel as if it could steer him to safety. The wind howled, and waves crashed against the hull, threatening to overturn him. Suddenly, he heard a sound that made his blood run cold, a soft thud from below deck. Heart racing, Jake rose to investigate. The hatch creaked open, revealing darkness that felt almost sentient. He hesitated, knowing he was alone, yet compelled to peer into the abyss. As he descended the steps, the stench of decay hit him like a wave, and he recoiled. There, sprawled across the cabin floor, lay the remains of his friends. But something was off. Their eyes were open, and Jake swore he could see them moving, twisting their mouths as if trying to speak. The grotesque mockery of their lifeless bodies sent him reeling back up the stairs, gasping for air. "No, no, no!" he screamed, backing away. "This isn't real." But their bodies seemed to lurk over him, and he could feel their eyes on him, urging him to join them in the depths. As dawn approached, he realized the sea had claimed more than just his friends. It had taken his sanity. Alone, lost, and desperate, Jake sat at the helm, his fingers slipping from the wheel. The whispers grew louder, and he felt a pull from the water, a call he could no longer resist. In a final act of surrender, he stood at the edge of the boat, the waves crashing below, and let himself fall into the embrace of the abyss. The last remnants of his humanity slipped away, consumed by the depths, leaving only silence in the wake of the Serenity, a ghost ship adrift on an endless sea.